morning and welcome to Herald Now. It is Tuesday, the 30th of September. I'm Ryan Bridge. Great to have your company this morning. Coming up on the show this hour, the Prime Minister's personal plea to Labour leader Chris Hipkins for a bipartisan approach to offshore gas exploration. Will Chippy play ball? He's live after news at 7:30. We've got an overhaul of the quake-prone building rules that hopes to save the country more than $8 billion, and it means that some buildings that were deemed shoddy will now be safe. We speak to an owner who's still in limbo, and the Minister's live within the next 10 minutes. And should you be allowed to have a water bottle at work? We speak to an employment lawyer after claims staff at a New World store were banned from having water bottles at the checkout. Plus, the boss of milk company Synlait is with us to talk about the turnaround and the sale of that Pocono plant. All ahead. Here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
The Property Council says a reset to quake-prone building standards will prevent buildings from being left empty. The government's new system only captures buildings genuinely posing a risk to life in medium and high seismic risk zones. It'll see Auckland, Northland and the Chatham Islands removed from the regime. Coastal Otago, including Dunedin, will be classified as a medium seismic hazard area and will remain within the earthquake-prone building system. It'll mean nearly 3,000 buildings will no longer be considered earthquake-prone. Chief Executive Leonie Freeman says the current rules saw many owners choosing abandoning their buildings instead of strengthening.
The analogy I can think of is like for car engines. And a rule came in which said every 10 years you've got to replace your car engine, regardless of whether you need to, whether it's run down or whatever. That's what we've had.
Concern over what's being forgotten in our health system to meet government targets. It set targets around cancer treatment access, childhood immunisation rates, ED stays and wait times. The latest stats show child immunisations are up 5% to 82%, while shorter ED stays have improved by just over 2%. Former Health NZ Chair Rob Campbell told Ryan Bridge there will be some things lapsing in order to achieve these.
The task for our public health system is really not so much to hit specific targets, but can we rebuild our health system into something which across the board is effective, efficient and resilient?
The Reserve Bank's conceded earlier or more aggressive OCR hikes may have reduced inflation sooner. It's been reviewing its response to the recent 3-year period of high inflation. Chief Economist Paul Conway says the central bank was also required to maintain maximum sustainable employment. It had limited data and less accurate forecasts due to COVID uncertainty. The Prime Minister's trying to convince his political foe not to bring back the oil and gas ban. Christopher Luxon has written to Labour leader Chris Hipkins, saying the country's in the unenviable position of importing vast quantities of coal to keep the lights on. Luxon's letter told Hipkins the possibility of a future Labour government choosing to reinstate a ban for offshore gas exploration may pose a barrier for some investors. The PM asked for Labour to commit to supporting offshore exploration for natural gas for at least the next decade. It appears other countries are still thirsty for our wine. The New Zealand Wine Growers 2025 annual report states exports are sitting at more than $2 billion per annum, fueling investment in 42,000 hectares of vineyards. The US remains the major export market despite a 3% drop at 762 million, and newer Asian markets are doing well.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Former Silver Ferns netball coach Yvonne Willering has questioned the silence from the Players Association amid the continued absence of incumbent mentor Dame Nolene Taurua. Men's tennis world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz has beaten Casper Ruud in 3 sets to reach the Japan Open final, where he will meet second seed Taylor Fritz for a chance to claim his 8th title of the year. Grammy-winning rapper Bad Bunny has been offered a musical carrot. He's been confirmed as the headline act for next year's Super Bowl halftime show in Santa Clara, California.
3 after 7 on Herald Now. So Luxon's now bestie pen pals with Hipkins, apparently. Christopher Luxon has written a personal letter to the Leader of the Opposition, and he wants basically a commitment from Labour, who, remember, banned offshore oil and gas exploration with the help of New Zealand First. He wants them to commit to 10 years of offshore exploration for gas. The next decade, basically, would be tied up. Now, the timing of this, the release of this letter, it's front page of your Herald this morning. The timing's interesting because Hipkins has his media rounds today. We've got the Frontier report on the energy sector out tomorrow, so it's kind of politics. It's a bit of a strategy. But if we're wanting bipartisanship, the fact that we have a leaked letter, not a great sign so far, is it? Labor's most recent stance on this is that they would reinstate the ban on oil and gas exploration, so it's a no from the outset. But they also haven't said whether they would go even further than that and revoke permits if they were elected, permits that the National Party would have issued. It's a bit of a political stunt by Christopher Luxon, trying to force Labor to double down on its position. And it's clever in a way. If nobody takes up the opportunity to look for gas after the ban reversal from National, Luxon can blame Labor and say, well, no one wants to invest because, Labor will come in and change the rules. That creates uncertainty. You'll remember the mood of the boardroom. We spoke about this. Business leaders clearly calling for bipartisanship and a vision to grow infrastructure, energy, very important to all of that. It's clear we're not really that growing up though, because already, and you can read that in the Herald today, already on bipartisanship, the leaders of both parties are arguing and don't seem to see any irony in doing so.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora. Well, for most of us, it's a fine, dry and sunny looking Tuesday. There are a few features to watch out for. This band of rain lingering in the far north, this next area of wet weather back in towards the south, and also find some stronger winds as well ahead of that band of rain in the south. Places like Southland, Otago, and even up in towards the Canterbury High Country as we head towards the end of the day today and through into the early hours of Wednesday morning. That wet weather, though, we were pushing northwards with a bit of a wintry feel to it, especially as we head through the night time tonight. Stronger winds ahead of it, but I think we're going to find it stays just about dry through most of Canterbury, just with the cloud perhaps thickening up and those winds increasing, especially through the Canterbury High Country. A fine day in Marlborough and Tasman, more cloud on that western coast with a few showers to watch out for. For most of the Northland, it's a dry story. There'll be more cloud arriving in the afternoon for places like Manawatu, Wanganui and Taranaki, but generally staying dry. And fine weather around these eastern coasts. Highs back to around about 20 degrees Celsius for Hastings. And a fine day through the Bay of Plenty. Waikato looking pretty decent and up in towards the Coromandel too. Auckland stays dry, a touch more cloud in the afternoon. If you're heading up into the far north though, we'll find this lingering band of wet weather stays with us throughout the day.
So a big shake-up for earthquake-prone buildings and the regulations that govern them. Nearly 3,000 buildings that were once deemed unsafe, suddenly now safe and gone from the register completely with the government's new risk-based approach. Doesn't mean everyone is out of limbo though. Mel Johnston with McAllister Heights Body Corp is the chair there in Wellington, joins me this morning. Mel, good morning.
Good.
Good to have you on the show. What does it mean for your building?
In the short term, it means more uncertainty because the report has obviously excluded a whole lot of buildings in New Zealand from the earthquake-prone building regime, but not ours. It looks like we are still going to fall and still be captured by the regime, and it appears from looking at the report that we'll be up for a targeted retrofit. The questions that we're left with are when will that assessment be done, assuming there's a new assessment needed, and how will that be funded if we still need to retrofit after that assessment? How are we going to pay for that?
Mel, do you know your building's percentage at the moment? Because it's all done based on a percentage, what the number is?
I think it was around 26. This was many years ago, back in actually 2009, we had it assessed.
Right, and are people still living in there? What's happened to the values and how much would it cost to fix it up?
So people are still living there and the values have absolutely plummeted. So the last two sales were for $150,000 each. In the Wellington market, that's nothing. The cost to strengthen when it was last quantity surveyed was $180,000 per owner. That was back in 2021.
What's it made of? It's more than 3 floors. What's the building?
that's right.
Is it the concrete problem? More than 3 floors and concrete, you're basically still in limbo.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
What's the...
And
sorry,
there you
Mel. What's the main question you would want to put to the Minister, Chris Penk, this morning?
I'd be really interested to know how developed the methodology is for actually doing the assessment of the buildings and what sort of timeline they have in mind at the moment. We were declared earthquake prone in 2010, so it's been 15 years of uncertainty. A lot of our owners have been unable to make major decisions in their lives because they are sort of effectively stuck in an unsaleable apartment. So I think that's the main question is, what are the timelines? What's the methodology? And I noticed in the report last night that there is some mention in the next step section about potential targeted loans or grants or tax relief, and I would like to know how seriously that might be explored.
Mel, how stressful has it been?
It's been very stressful. It's been incredibly time consuming. And we've been living with it for 15 years now because we're in Wellington, so we were one of the first areas in New Zealand to have this concept of being earthquake prone to deal with. And our building's been through a lot of work already. We've done design after design. We've been working with engineers, project managers, lawyers, geotech people, and of course our owners. So we have 28 apartments, and that multi-owner situation is another bit of complexity to work through. So it has been stressful, and really we've worked sort of in good faith towards compliance since 2010. And the reason that we haven't complied yet is because we haven't had the confidence to say to our owners, this is the best thing you should do. We don't think it's going to change anymore. And on balance, this is going to be our solution, and let's get on with it.
Yeah, that uncertainty. I mean, we're talking about bipartisanship this morning. A little bit of that would go a long way.
Actually, that would be another question I'd have for the Minister is to what extent has support from other parties been sought on this? Because I can't imagine another government going back on this plan, to be honest, but I'd like to know, it'd be interesting to know whether there has been explicit support given.
Mel, we're going to get some answers for you this morning. Thanks so much for your time. Mel Johnston, who's with the McAllister Heights Body Corp, the chair in Wellington, just gone 11 minutes after 7. So Mel has a long laundry list of questions for the Minister, and he joins us now. Chris Penk is the Building and Construction Minister live. Good morning.
Morena, good morning, Ryan.
Let's start with bipartisanship. Did you brief Labor before you made this announcement?
Yes, I did a few weeks ago, and I've had good engagement with Labor and actually the Greens as well throughout the process. And I say the process because actually it's been a year or so now since we first started talking seriously about doing something about this and actually getting alongside them and joining together across the House to legislate a pause. So, to obviously feel terrible for the likes of Mel and others in this very distressing situation that we're trying to help. And what we said was that an extra 4 years or maybe even 6 where they don't have to take action that might be regretted by them later in terms of doing things. So we're trying to provide the certainty in the intervening period, yes, with the help of Labor, Greens and anyone else who's, as well as the government, of course, prepared to help us solve this problem.
Have they told you whether they'll support it or not that far yet? We've got Hipkins on later, so I can ask him.
Yeah, obviously I'll let them speak for themselves, but I've had good interaction, including as recently as yesterday with Arana Williams, being the Building and Construction spokesperson for Labor. They get the problem because they've heard from around the country, just as I have had and the government has had, about the problem. So I'm really optimistic.
All right, we'll ask them. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Now, the other thing Mel wanted answered this morning from you is the methodology. So if you're in a 3+ concrete, what's the methodology and what's the timeline?
Yeah, I mean, the timeline has to flow, first of all, from understanding that this does require a law change. So to change the Building Act will require Parliament to come together over the course of a year. Yes, hopefully on a bipartisan basis, but still, I don't want anyone to feel as though they haven't had the opportunity to have a say. So middle of next year, with that law in place, ahead of the election, importantly, the technical details, which will be worked on in the meantime with the methodologies, will hopefully make quite clear to Mel and others in a similar situation what targeted retrofit, which he's quite rightly referred to, will mean inevitably there'll be a bit less than currently and a bit less cost involved as well.
So we're looking at, 18 months to 2 years before we get a hard law, but in the meantime, we might have some stronger guidelines.
Yeah, I think it's probably a reasonable
All right.
best guess. But certainly the 12-month mark from now, you think about Parliament rising ahead of an election, that's where we want to be done and dusted because we want the certainty as soon as possible.
All right. What about the loans and potential grants that were mentioned? Is that just a have in the brochure, or is that serious?
Well, I mean, that was a recommendation that came to us. It seems to me that it's a difficult position for a government to be recommending taxpayer funds be applied to get buildings up to standard in the same way that you could make an equivalent argument for coastal properties on a managed retreat basis or other ways in which buildings are vulnerable or don't meet the code. I think our focus must remain making it as easy as possible for those who are still caught by the system, even, of course, as we try to exclude as many as possible reasonably on a risk proportionate basis, and think about ways that we can make it easier, including in terms of heritage rules and resource management and other ways that we stand in the way currently of people being able to do the work.
A lot of focus on the savings that will be made, the buildings that will be taken off the register. Do you know how many will be put on?
I wouldn't expect that any build not currently on the register would go on. I can't guarantee that there will be none, but certainly the net effect will be that there will be many fewer, probably around half still on the register or requiring some kind of strengthening or demolition as compared with the current situation.
Okay. And what about, big safety is the big thing. We've heard from the Westland Mayor who's worried about, well, just because we're in a small town, it might mean one person dies instead of 10 in a bigger town, but that's still one person dying. Did any of the advice tell you what the proportional increase in number of deaths might be as a result of the changes? Any indication around lives that might be lost?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to measure because, of course, whether there are any lives even at risk, let alone lost, depends on whether there's a major earthquake and in what time frame. In the Building Act, we require that buildings remain around for 50 years. And, of course, we might be talking hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of years before the next major quake in a particular area. The report did have some things to say about increasing risk, where we're obviously excluding some buildings, and of course instinctively that's true. But what you've got to do, of course, is measure that against the current reality, which is that a lot of buildings that are meant to be remediated, strengthened or demolished simply won't be because they can't afford to be, the owners can't afford to get that done. So that's the real comparison, and on that basis it'll be pretty similar from a risk perspective. All
right, appreciate your time this morning, Minister. Thanks for being with me. It is 16 after 7. That's Chris Penk, Minister of Building Construction. You're watching Herald Now. So this whole thing this morning we were talking about in the office, and I mean, I think it's good. When you think of how many buildings, thousands of them, because of government, over-regulation, let's be honest, are just sitting empty and idle and being wasted. People can't go to the theatre in some rural communities anymore, which is a hub of their community, because they can't afford to upgrade the buildings. So I think it's good that this is happening. We were also talking this morning about the comparison with Australia, who don't really do earthquakes like we do here. And I said, I just, would rather probably, personally, be a country that has to deal with earthquakes than I would be a country that has to deal with things like snakes and spiders and crocodiles. And I just wondered what side of the fence you're on here. Is it, would you prefer to be a country that has your biggest natural disaster problem as earthquakes, or would you rather live with snakes coming out of the toilet and biting you on the bum? Ryan at nzherald.co.nz. We would, of course, welcome your feedback this morning on the changes more generally. Coming up, the business leader trying to turn around milk company Synlait is live.
Oh, I also wanted to get something for my new kitchen while I was here.
Yeah, we've got plenty of great appliances for your kitchen.
Here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
can have what she's having.
Sing your heart out to Coast's feel-good 80s hits. Kenny Loggins, Whitney, John Farnham, Eurythmics, Bonnie Tyler, Eric Carmen. The most 80s are on Coast. Sing your heart out. Coast.
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own, unlike other tea companies. Then pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity and to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
Do try it.
It is 7:19, you're with Herald Now. We'll check in on Donald Trump and Netanyahu. They've been meeting at the White House in just a second for an update. First, Synlait milk appears to have turned a bit of a corner after a touch-and-go time in recent years. It's soon to become debt-free after the sale of its state-of-the-art factory at Promotional to Chicago-based Abbott for around $300 million. Richard Wyeth is the CEO and joins me this morning. Richard, good morning.
Morning, Ryan.
Good to have you on the show. Tell us about the sale of Pocono, how significant that is going to be for your business.
Yeah, it's really significant, Ryan. If you go back 12 months, I think the board were meeting probably on a daily basis, trying to work through a recapitalisation. So to have this announcement yesterday that we've sold that asset for, as you said, just over $300 million, it just really solidifies the business and allows us to really concentrate and focus going forward.
You talk about the second half turbulence. What's that about?
Yeah, we had quite a few manufacturing challenges sort of in the second half of the last financial year, so sort of from February onwards, and that really impacted our bottom line at the end of the year.
What were the challenges? It was in Dunsandel. What were the issues?
A lot of one-off issues, so won't go into specifics of those, but as you can imagine, when you're making advanced nutritional infant formula, we just can't take any risks around product. So unfortunately, we had some issues where we had to obviously downgrade some of that product and the costs run through to the P&L.
Right. You guys got any worries about energy?
Look, it's expensive. I think we're about to sign another energy contract. It'll be about twice the price we've paid in previous years. So we had quite a long-term contract, which was really positive. But yeah, I think we're looking at probably a $6 million increase going forward.
Wow, your energy costs are doubling. And over what's your new contract period?
We're looking at quite a long-term contract, basically to try and lock that in. So yeah, hopefully we get it right. But you know, our view is at the moment there's a lot of talk about energy at the moment. Hopefully that'll see some pricing improve over time, but at the moment we're not certain about that. So we are looking to lock in for some longer term. We'll be looking at renewables and solar, but it's a real challenge for us.
Richard, we've got the PM writing to the Leader of the Opposition today, asking for a bipartisan approach on energy, on gas in particular. What's your message as Chief Executive at Synlait? What's your message to all parties on energy?
Yeah, look, I saw the headline on that this morning, Ryan. I mean, my view is across a lot of things, we've actually got to take a bipartisan approach. And I think if we can't get our act together as a country and across the political lines, you know, it's going to be really challenging for us going forward. So certainly on energy, we need to think long term and we need to work together.
Richard, looking forward to seeing the turnaround of Synlait continue. Thanks for being with me this morning.
Thanks, Ryan.
Cheers. That's Richard Wyeth, who's the Chief Executive at Synlait, 22 minutes after 7. You're watching Herald Now. So what about this idea, because the Germans do it, well, plenty of other countries do it, of a grand coalition between Labour and National. So for everyone who worries about, you know, Te Pāti Māori, worries about the Greens, for those on the other side who worry about ACT, well, what if you cut them all out of the equation and had National and Labour, who, let's face it, probably have more in common than a centre party with one on the far of either side, coming together and running this country? Do you think that would ever happen? Is it even a possibility? Flick me an email, Ryan at nzherald.co.nz. 23 minutes after 7, we've got Hipkins up after news at 7:30, and we're standing by for an announcement out of the States this morning. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been meeting with Trump at the White House. They've had dinner together a few hours ago. It's expected the US president will use the meeting as an opportunity to push for a new peace plan for Gaza, with Trump telling reporters he is, quote, confident about bringing peace to the war-torn region. Netanyahu told reporters nothing has been finalised yet, and I also want to point out that Hamas has put a statement out saying they have not been told anything about a peace plan. Right, no water bottles at the checkout. That's the claims from a New World supermarket worker who says there's a ban preventing employees from keeping water bottles at checkouts, that staff only have access to water every few hours and only on their breaks. Foodstuffs says their stores are owned and operated individually and that the policy is up to each individual store, basically a will not confirm deny. However, it expects that any policy should be fair and reasonable. Jennifer Mills is an employment law specialist and joins us live. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good to have you on the show. I want to point out that I get water delivered to me every morning, which is very kind, but then they don't let me take toilet breaks here because there's no time, because Australia's very busy. Could I sue?
There's case law out of Australia that says that an employee must be able to access facilities even outside the nominated rest and break times. So potentially you could have an unjustified disadvantage action against your employer. Yes, Ryan.
Interesting.
But the issue here...
I'm just noting that down, Jennifer. Thank you. And I've also been offered a bucket by the team in the control room, which is lovely. Seriously, though, can you, if you're allowing people to have water on their break, is that reasonable, or should they be allowed access to water the whole shift?
So the question is health and safety. An employer's got an obligation to provide a safe and healthy working environment, and there's a specific health and safety regulation, Ryan, of 2016, which expressly says that employers have a duty to provide adequate facilities for workers, including drinking water. And the question in this case is, do employees have reasonable access to drinking water if it's limited to their break times? Our health and safety legislation is based on the Australian model law, and there are two recent cases out of Australia, one of which is a McDonald's case, and the Australian Federal Court said that restricting an employee to access drinking water and facilities only during meal and rest times is unlawful, is a breach of the legislation. And the court went on to say that basic physiological needs like hydration and urination, Ryan, cannot be restricted to rigid break times, describing the denials as having an element of cruelty.
It's hard to argue with that. I mean, when nature calls, right? But what if someone's taking the piss and going to the toilet, having 5 toilet breaks of a shift?
That's a different issue. So the question for an employer there is an employee taking reasonable breaks? Is it genuine? And if it's an attempt to get out of work and spend long periods of time in the facilities, then obviously an employer will be inquiring into that. But this is a different issue where you have staff working shifts restricted from accessing drinking water only to during their nominated meal and break times. And the courts in Australia have said that's unlawful. I would suggest to you that that is the case here also. And as you rightly identified in your introduction, a foodstuff spokesperson has said that they expect their store teams to be fair and reasonable and to look after their teams. And I think that's a signal to the owner-operators that this prohibition needs to be brought to an end.
Hard to argue, I think, Jennifer. Thank you. Jennifer Mills, employment law specialist, with us this morning. It is 27 minutes after 7 on Herald Now. Chris Hipkins is with us live after the news at 7:30. Stay with us.
You Do It DIY can make your new dream kitchen a reality. As a trusted Kiwi manufacturer for 44 years, You Do It has made it easy to design, order and assemble your own dream kitchen, offering a range of colour options and flexible sizing. With excellent online support, our customers all agree that You Do It makes DIY easy, delivering superb quality at a great price. Get your project started today at nzherald.co.nz.
We have completed 4 builds with GJ. Every time we want to think of building, we always go back to GJ.
It's a really good experience throughout the whole process.
They deliver what they promise on, and it feels like working with a family member. It's very easy and trustworthy to work with GJ.
I'm Hayden Scott, and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. Yeah, my previous life, I was a chef. Did that for 25 years. But I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time. And so that transition from finishing that 25-year career and taking the plunge into full-time knife maker, I had been building up to that, but I still had to take a leap.
Know more of the story with Herald Premium, giving you full access to in-depth news, opinion and analysis, with more world news, business insights, and investigative reports from our world-class team of journalists. Plus subscriber-only functionality to comment on stories, access newspaper e-editions, gift articles, and enjoy crosswords and puzzles. Subscribe now to Herald Premium.
You're watching Herald Now. It's just gone 7:30. Quick update on the Trump-Netanyahu press conference, which is delayed. But what the White House has done is release a plan to end the conflict in Gaza ahead of this press conference. So we'll bring you the comments as soon as we have them from both Trump and Netanyahu. But the plan has 20 points to it, and it includes a de-radicalised terror-free zone for Gaza that does not pose a threat to its neighbours. And this is exactly the point that Winston Peters and the coalition have been making, that you cannot have Hamas involved in any way, shape or form in the administration of Gaza. And that seems to be very much at the heart of the document that Trump has just released. With the latest headlines, here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
The Property Council says a reset to quake-prone building standards will prevent buildings from being left empty. The government's new system only captures buildings genuinely posing a risk to life in medium and high seismic risk zones. It'll see Auckland, Northland and the Chatham Islands removed from the regime. Coastal Otago, including Dunedin, will be classified as a medium seismic hazard area and will remain within the earthquake-prone building system. It'll mean nearly 3,000 buildings will no longer be considered earthquake-prone. Chief Executive Leonie Freeman says the current rule saw many owners choosing abandoning their buildings instead of strengthening.
The analogy I can think of is like for car engines. And a rule came in which said every 10 years you've got to replace your car engine, regardless of whether you need to, whether it's run down or whatever. That's what we've had.
Concern over what's being forgotten in our health system to meet government targets. It set targets around cancer treatment access, childhood immunisation rates, ED stays and wait times. The latest stats show child immunisations are up 5% to 82%, while shorter ED stays have improved by just over 2%. Former Health NZ Chair Rob Campbell told Ryan Bridge there will be some things lapsing in order to achieve these.
The task for our public health system is really not so much to hit specific targets, but can we rebuild our health system into something which across the board is effective, efficient and resilient?
The Reserve Bank's conceded earlier or more aggressive OCR hikes may have reduced inflation sooner. It's been reviewing its response to the recent 3-year period of high inflation. Chief Economist Paul Conway says the central bank was also required to maintain maximum sustainable employment. It had limited data and less accurate forecasts due to COVID uncertainty. The Prime Minister's trying to convince his political foe not to bring back the oil and gas ban. Christopher Luxon has written to Labour leader Chris Hipkins, saying the country's in the unenviable position of importing vast quantities of coal to keep the lights on. Luxon's letter told Hipkins the possibility of a future Labour government choosing to reinstate a ban for offshore gas exploration may pose a barrier for some investors. The PM asked for Labour to commit to supporting offshore exploration for natural gas for at least the next decade. It appears other countries are still thirsty for our wine. The New Zealand Wine Growers 2025 annual report states exports are sitting at more than $2 billion per annum, fueling investment in 42,000 hectares of vineyards. The US remains the major export market despite a 3% drop at 762 million, and newer Asian markets are doing well.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Former Silver Ferns netball coach Yvonne Willering has questioned the silence from the Players Association amid the continued absence of incumbent mentor Dame Nolene Todua. Men's tennis world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz has beaten Casper Ruud in 3 sets to reach the Japan Open final, where he will meet second seed Taylor Fritz for a chance to claim his 8th title of the year. Grammy-winning rapper Bad Bunny has been offered a musical carrot. He's been confirmed as the headline act for next year's Super Bowl halftime show in Santa Clara, California.
The priests are doing it again. This time it's Education Minister Erica Stanford's office in Auckland. They're protesting. I don't even care what about at this point. They tried to enter the office yesterday to meet with staffers. They were denied entry. They've said they will not leave until they blah, blah, whatever. Just go back to church. Honestly, I'm sick of this. I've had enough. They'll chain themselves to a lamppost at this point. Annoying. Let's get to weather.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora. Well, for most of us, it's a fine, dry and sunny looking Tuesday. There are a few features to watch out for. This band of rain lingering in the far north. This next area of wet weather back in towards the south, and also find some stronger winds as well ahead of that band of rain in the south. Places like Southland, Otago, and even up in towards the Canterbury High Country as we head towards the end of the day today and through into the early hours of Wednesday morning. That wet weather, though, we were pushing northwards with a bit of a wintry feel to it, especially as we head through the night time tonight. Stronger winds ahead of it, but I think we're going to find it stays just about dry through most of Canterbury, just with the cloud perhaps thickening up and those winds increasing, especially through the Canterbury High Country. A fine day in Marlborough and Tasman, more cloud on that western coast with a few showers to watch out for. For most of the Northland, it's a dry story. There'll be more cloud arriving in the afternoon for places like Manawatu, Wanganui and Taranaki, but generally staying dry. And fine weather around these eastern coasts. Highs back to around about 20 degrees Celsius for Hastings, and a fine day through the Bay of Plenty. Waikato looking pretty decent, and up in towards the Coromandel too. Auckland stays dry, a touch more cloud in the afternoon. If you're heading up into the far north though, we'll find this lingering band of wet weather stays with us throughout the day.
24 minutes away from 8 now. Chris Hipkins in a few moments' time. And also this morning we'll bring you an update from the White House. First, it's time for business with our partners 2 Degrees. We've got a weak economy and we've got about a week to go before the Reserve Bank weighs up what it'll do about the OCR. Garth Bray Business Desk. Good morning, Garth.
Good morning, Ryan.
First of all, we had some jobs data out for August and it was good, but we also had some revisions.
Yeah. So I think about 0.2 month on month, which is good, but down about 0.7 year on year. I mean, the bright spots, if you're looking for them, were that we sort of saw, we did see some gains there. And I guess Canterbury in particular was up 0.6. So you're sort of seeing some growth in those regions. And healthcare and social assistance up 1.7%. So, good jobs in nursing and so on.
Okay, maybe that's why we're seeing some of the targets being inched ever closer to from Simeon Brown this morning.
Yeah.
Southern Cross, staying on health, paid out a record number of claims. Geez, there's a few hips and knees out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is 1.7 billion paid out for 3.8 million claims, which was a record year. Obviously, that's hit its books somewhat. They were talking about quite a heavy deficit there. I think a $5.69 million deficit for health insurance. They offset that a little bit with about a $13.9 million surplus that they got from investments they're making, but effectively they're digging into the reserves to pay people at the moment. That's not a sustainable situation. So you've got to wonder, is that going to start to hit premiums and start pushing things up? Reading into their report, they seem to be saying, well, we're going to try and target the 15% inflation that we're seeing in medical procedures and so on. Obviously, they want to try and push those costs down, so you can expect that they'll be bargaining much more aggressively with the 2,500 odd providers that they get. And there's a line in there about basically, from what I can see, trying to use more AI and app-based interactions to try and get things across without losing the personal touch, as they say, but effectively just trying to make things a whole lot cheaper to run in the future so that they can afford to try. They're also saying, CPI dropping, interest rates dropping should ease the cost of living pressure, which for me sounds like code for we think people will be able to afford the cuts that we do put through.
Yeah. And Garth, RBNZ, as we said, next week we'll get a decision. What are they saying? Double whammy? What are we expecting?
Probably about a 20% chance of a double whammy. 50 basis point is where the market's seeing that at the moment, fully priced in a 25 basis point cut, basically on the idea that the recovery is just not coming, and that we need something quite definite right now, and that really there's a shortage of kind of clear economic data about where things are going to go in the other than one survey that's out next week. So maybe they won't risk it. I mean, interesting to see some of the banks. I think BNZ's already just announced a cut below 4.5% on a one-year rate at the moment. So some banks
that's sounding hopeful. That's sounding good. Garth, good to see you as always. Garth Bray, Business Desk. Thanks to our partners, 2 Degrees. Time now is 21 minutes away from 8 o'clock. So the PM has written, as I mentioned earlier, PM has written to the Leader of the Opposition. Herald's got the letter and basically saying we want bipartisan support on natural gas for the next 10 years. This is offshore exploration. Labor has already said nah. So what do they say now? Chris Hipkins, Labor Leader at the desk. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
When did he write to you? When did you get the letter?
I was first alerted to it by the journalist who wrote the story on the front page there. I believe my office had received it about half an hour before they did. So
not long.
Not a lot long. No, I don't. Look, this is performative politics as opposed to any kind of genuine attempt to reach a bipartisan agreement on.
Have you replied yet? Had a chance?
Well, I've replied through the media. He didn't really give me much choice to do that, but I'll certainly send him a letter in response.
What will you say?
I will say that oil and gas is not the way of the future for New Zealand. Renewable energy is the way of the future for New Zealand. We have an abundant supply of it. It's cheap, and if we want to lower power prices, that's how we're going to do it.
But what future? Are you talking mid-term future, or are you talking long-term future? Because we've just spoken to Synlait. Their factory energy costs, they've just doubled.
If they want a fast answer to that, renewable energy is faster to bring on stream than oil and gas is. Even if they find a new gas find today, we're talking potentially up to 10 years before that gas comes into the market.
What if the sun don't shine or the rain don't fall?
Well, there are options there. We can use our hydro lakes as a form of battery storage.
How's that been going?
We've got geothermal. The market doesn't currently reward them for holding the water. It rewards them for spilling the water.
So this is a hard no on gas, oil and gas from Labor, period. There will be no turnaround.
We haven't had a significant find of new natural gas for 2 decades, more than 20 years. The government subsidising, in all likelihood, what are going to be empty holes, isn't going to solve our energy crisis.
All right, so it's a no.
Well, our position's long-standing on that.
Will you move to take some of these permits that National might grant off the companies that hold them?
No. When we introduced the oil and gas ban in the first place, we honoured all existing permits. We do the same thing again. And bearing in mind there were still a lot of active permits at that time, and people either haven't explored those active permits or did and didn't find anything.
If we want international investment in New Zealand, one of the things they want to invest in is oil and gas exploration, and one of the things business is calling for is a bipartisan approach. You're rubbishing that idea now.
If they wanted to invest in oil and gas exploration in New Zealand, there would be oil and gas exploration in New Zealand,
but
the government wouldn't be subsidising it by $200 million. The reality is they don't want to invest in New Zealand because the likelihood of finding gas is very low.
All right, what about a bipartisan approach on the earthquake standards that the government announced yesterday, or lowering of the standards?
I think overall we're broadly supportive of the direction of travel there. We want to look at the detail to make sure that the risk is being properly managed. I do want to acknowledge the families who lost people in the Canterbury earthquakes. The reason the standards were changed to what they are was by a national government actually, because of in response to the tragic loss of life in Canterbury. But there is clear evidence that those changes went too far, and so making sure we get the balance right here is important.
So you'll work with them, and hopefully you will support the bill.
Broadly speaking, what we saw yesterday seems pretty good.
It's funny because something bad happens and then we go too far and over-regulate, don't we?
Not always, but in this particular case, I think there's evidence that buildings that shouldn't need significant remediation, we're going to have significant remediation unnecessarily.
We sort of saw the same thing happen with the Reserve Bank. COVID came and then...
Nice pivot.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I'm paid to do. COVID came and then Reserve Bank went too slow and then too high too quick. Was that annoying for you? Do you share the frustration that many people have with how the Reserve Bank handled it?
Oh, but look, everyone gets frustrated with the Reserve Bank, but unlike the current government, I believe in the Reserve Bank's independence, so I'm not going to tell them how to do their jobs. Bear in mind,
what about
Nicola
reviewing
Willis,
how they did their job?
Well, bear in mind, Nicola Willis, the first thing she did as Minister of Finance was change the Reserve Bank's mandate so that the only mandate it has is to bring down inflation. It is not the Reserve Bank's job to keep people in employment or to grow the economy. Nicola Willis changed the law to make that clear. So the Reserve Bank are doing exactly what Nicola Willis told them to do.
Do you think we would be in as deep a hole as we are now if they had acted differently then? I mean, that's pretty much what they are conceding.
I think one of the lessons from COVID around the world is that central banks didn't get it completely right. You know, there are certainly lessons for all of the central banks, including ours, that we need to look at. But if you look at the inflationary curve, that bell curve of inflation, New Zealand was about the middle of the pack around the world. You know, our inflation spiked up, same as the rest of the world, and it came down, same as the rest of the world. And we were around about the middle of that group.
All right. Palestine, I'm curious, this is, from what I can see, your only major policy at this point is on Palestine, which is a war that's not being raged here or ravaged here. Obviously important, but why that issue, deciding to have that, you know, within a day or whatever you recognise it?
New Zealand's reputation around the world has been as a principled, independent, for our principled, independent foreign policy. We no longer have that reputation. We are no longer acting with principle. Murray McCulley, as our Minister of Foreign Affairs, took a very principled position on Palestine. This government have moved away from that in a way that I think is not only embarrassing for New Zealand, it's shameful.
Trump's doing a presser at the White House right now, and they've put out a 20-point plan. I know you wouldn't have had a chance to see it. I haven't either, but one of the big points in it is Gaza having nothing to do with Hamas, having no Hamas involvement in any leadership or any government. Do you think that is reasonable?
Hamas is a terrorist organisation. New Zealand has taken that position. I fully support that position. But starving people and committing genocide is not the answer.
All right. Very quickly before you go, you know how Winston doesn't want to deal with Labor while you're leading it? Would you sort of fall on your sword if it meant that you could perhaps get Labor into government? Better you be a minister in a government than a leader of the opposition?
My aim is for Labor to win the next election, and that's exactly what I'm working on.
And if that involves you standing aside to let someone else...
Oh, that's just ridiculous. Winston Peters shouldn't be allowed to hold the country to ransom. Christopher Luxon might be happy with that. I wouldn't allow it.
OK. And you wouldn't step aside to kowtow to his demands?
I think Kiwis have had a guts full of Winston Peters and David Seymour calling all the shots and holding the country to ransom.
Not a no, is it?
Oh, this is ridiculous.
Appreciate your time. Chris Hipkins, the leader of the Labor Party. It is 14 minutes away from 8 o'clock. We'll be back in a second.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning.
Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit. You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, you got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On The Hits.
Oh, I also wanted to get something for my new kitchen while I was here.
Yeah, we've got plenty of great appliances for your kitchen.
Flavor.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then. Mm-hmm.
Welcome back. A woman has been charged with murder following an incident in a moving vehicle in Matata. The Rotorua Daily Post reporter Kelly Makiha is with us with the latest this morning. Kelly, what do we know?
Look, a woman has been charged with murdering one person and seriously injuring another person in what police said was an incident that happened inside a car not long before it crashed. Now, details around this case are under wraps at the moment, and we do have to abide by some fairly hefty suppression orders. But what I can tell you is that a 34-year-old Rotorua woman has appeared in the Whakatane District Court. She's charged with murder and with wounding with an intent to cause grievous bodily harm. That's as a result of emergency services being called to an incident on the corner of Flax Road and Matata Road, which is in the township, Eastern Bay of Plenty township of Matata. At that scene, a person has died and another person has been injured, and the third person, who is the woman, she's the one that has been charged. So she appeared in court yesterday. Judge Stephen Cole, he has granted the woman interim name suppression, and he has also granted suppression for the person who died as well as the person who was injured. Now, interim suppression orders in this early stage of serious cases like this is not unusual, but the woman's lawyer, he's going to have to advance some grounds as to why suppression needs to continue when she appears before a judge again, which will be at the end of this month. But what we can also say is that the police issued a statement at the weekend. This was Detective Inspector Lou Warner. He's the head honcho over here at the Bay of Plenty District Crime Squad, and what he did say is that it was a shocking incident, and he said that support has been wrapped around the family of those involved, and he said support has also been wrapped around people who were first on the scene, who he said tried their very best to do everything possible. So like I say, you know, details around this case are a little bit under wraps at the moment. The court has ordered some reports to be done on the woman who has been charged. Now, we can't go into details about what those reports are because the matter is before the court, but what we can say is those reports will determine how the court case progresses in the future.
All right, Kelly, thank you so much for that update. Really appreciate it. That's Kelly Makiha, who's with the Rotorua Daily Post. Time now is 9 to 8. US President Donald Trump and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have been meeting in the White House. Addressing reporters after the meeting, Trump says that America and Israel are, quote, close to reaching peace in the Middle East.
So today is a historic day for peace, and Prime Minister Netanyahu and I have just concluded an important meeting on many vital issues, including Iran, trade, the expansion of the Abraham Accords, and most importantly, we discussed how to end the war in Gaza, but it's just a part of the bigger picture, which is peace in the Middle East. And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East.
The President thanked Netanyahu for agreeing to the plan before listing the countries around the world who are on board with it. He reminded Hamas that releasing all of the hostages is central to the peace effort, along with returning the bodies of those who have already died. The plan also rests on the complete destruction of Hamas and the creation of a Gaza board of peace. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair wants to be on that board. Trump has said, although he hasn't named any other members who might be on board. The president concedes that Hamas is yet to answer, and it seems there are still lots of details to iron out here, of course. It is just gone 8 minutes away from 8 now, and that means it's time to talk tech, thanks to our partners Noel Leeming. Teachers and students are increasingly embracing AI tools in the classroom, so to help with tasks like grading, creating personalised lesson plans, that kind of stuff. But it's not without its challenges. Sam Gibson is Education Sector Lead at Noel Leeming and is at the desk. Sam, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
So what exactly, when we say embracing AI, how are they doing that?
Yeah, at the moment teachers are really working to understand it first of all, but once they do, then it's about how do they make their lives a little bit more efficient and streamline admin tasks, and I think that's where we're at the moment. And then you've got your early adopters that are also really starting to embed it in the classroom to enhance student learning, and that's the ultimate goal, really.
What about, there's been some talk about grading, that side of the equation. Are we anywhere near that being ready or plausible?
Well, I think the ministry's outlined that they're keen to use it for grading, but a few watch-outs there. I think we don't want to just have students doing AI written essays and then teachers having AI to do the marking. So it's one of the big watch-outs, really. It's about how can we use AI to enhance the learning process rather than just having all these shortcuts and
replacing it.
Yes, exactly.
So you just need to learn something.
Yeah, so we sort of talk about that substitution, but really how do we redefine what's possible, and that's the key and what we've got to keep front of mind as well.
Sam, what kind of feedback have you had from teachers and principals about your AI initiatives?
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of workshops, and we'll work with partners such as we've got Bex Rose at AI Surge as well. So we go around the country, and at the moment it's really about kind of demystifying what AI is and then really showing the benefits for teachers and how they can use it really well for their own practice. And then again, ultimately moving into how can we use it to enhance learning for our students. And along that journey as well, keeping in mind all the things to watch out for. So I'd say I'm cautiously optimistic about AI is how I describe myself. So really focusing on the positives, but being aware of the things that can go wrong or where we want to control that narrative and make sure things go in terms of being part of that learning process and not just a means to an end as well.
Is AI the kind of thing that takes on a life and a mind of its own, and we humans are going to have to constantly be playing catch up with it?
Yeah, a little bit, and I think we've got to be really careful with this idea of sort of cognitive atrophy as well. We actually want to use it to help us become smarter and not just getting shortcuts, which is pretty dangerous as well. So, bringing it back to the classroom, it's really about how do we bring it in, see the benefits. And for me, one of the number one benefits is the ability to individualise or personalise learning for our students. So how can we meet them at where they're at in a context that they're interested in and help them become more engaged. And I think if we can focus on that and the positives with AI enhancing learning in that way, then we'll be moving in the right direction.
What about a policy? Schools will, if they don't have already, I'm sure will soon have policies on AI. How do you develop it? What do you need to think about?
Yeah, so there's so many things like platforms to use, what's secure, what's safe for our students and our teachers. So you don't want to just be putting information into a large language model and it going out in the wild. So how can we use platforms that we know have enterprise-grade security? So in New Zealand schools, it might be Microsoft schools or Google schools, and the ministry is already paying for those licenses to keep it secure within that domain as well. So making sure that we're focused on the platforms. There's making sure that everyone's thinking critically about the outputs as well, because you can't just trust everything that comes out, so not trusting the output, actually going back with a critical lens and looking at it. And that's from a teacher point of view, but ultimately training our students to make sure they're always looking at things critically as well.
A grain of salt and a healthy dose of scepticism.
Exactly.
Would go a long way. Sam, good to see you. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
That is Sam Gibson, Noel Leeming Education Sector Lead, and we talk tech thanks to our partners, Noel Leeming. Time now is 4 to 8. After news at 8, we'll hear from the Major Electricity Users Association. This is ahead of the government's big announcement and the reveal of that Frontier report, which is happening tomorrow. We'll also have more from the White House. Stay tuned.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Yeah, do what I want. Yeah, can't get enough. Yeah, do what I want. Yeah, can't get enough. Yeah, do what I want. Still can't get enough.
You Do It delivers high-quality New Zealand-made flat-pack DIY kitchen cabinetry. With flexible widths at your fingertips, it makes designing easy. All at an affordable price because you order online and cut out the middleman. You can even upgrade your dream kitchen with You Do It stylish and clever options, like choosing wall cabinets with overhanging doors, or select from a range of pull-out storage solutions. Add premium soft-close drawers and ask to stretch the height, width or depth of your cabinets. Upgrade your kitchen today and head to nzherald.co.nz.
Ready? Go!
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
Speaker to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of it? You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university. My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
You're watching Herald Now. It's coming up to 1 minute away from 8 o'clock. Just want to do a quick shout out to Dame Knowles this morning. Good luck for your meeting. She is heading into a meeting with Netball New Zealand, and I am Team Dame Knowles all day. So are most of the stars, former and current, of netball, including Grace Wecke, who's the biggest star in netball right now. She's behind her. She wants her back. Dame Knowles, according to the Aussie coach, wants to come back. So the only thing standing in the way, it would seem, is Netball New Zealand. So get out of the way. And actually, Dame Knowles, now's the time to double down. You've got all the cards in your court, balls in your court, and it's time to play them. Ask for a pay rise, get some better clauses. Right, 8 o'clock, Herald Now. Good morning. Welcome to Herald Now. I'm Ryan Bridge. Tuesday, the 30th of September. Brilliant to have you with me this morning. Coming up on the show this hour, we look at the hopes and dreams of the Major Electricity Users Association ahead of this frontier report that's being announced from the government tomorrow. Will we avoid another energy crunch? That's the question. And are we growing up enough politically to take a bipartisan approach to major infrastructure projects? Our panel weighs in shortly. And the longest flight in the world is launching later this year, a grueling 29 hours. Stops in Auckland, mind you, for a couple. You couldn't pay me to do this. Stay tuned for the announcement of the winner of the One Roof car competition. That's ahead too. First, Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
The Property Council says a reset to quake-prone building standards will prevent buildings from being left empty. The government's new system only captures buildings genuinely posing a risk to life in medium and high seismic risk zones. It'll see Auckland, Northland and the Chatham Islands removed from the regime. Coastal Otago, including Dunedin, will be classified as a medium seismic hazard area and will remain within the earthquake-prone building system. It'll mean nearly 3,000 buildings will no longer be considered earthquake-prone. Chief Executive Leonie Freeman says the current rule saw many owners choosing abandoning their buildings instead of strengthening.
The analogy I can think of is like for car engines. And a rule came in which said every 10 years you've got to replace your car engine, regardless of whether you need to, whether it's run down or whatever. That's what we've had.
Concern over what's being forgotten in our health system to meet government targets. It set targets around cancer treatment access, childhood immunisation rates, ED stays and wait times. The latest stats show child immunisations are up 5% to 82%, while shorter ED stays have improved by just over 2%. Former Health NZ Chair Rob Campbell told Ryan Bridge there will be some things lapsing in order to achieve these.
The task for our public health system is really not so much to hit specific targets, but can we rebuild our health system into something which across the board is effective, efficient and resilient?
The Reserve Bank's conceded earlier or more aggressive OCR hikes may have reduced inflation sooner. It's been reviewing its response to the recent 3-year period of high inflation. Chief Economist Paul Conway says the central bank was also required to maintain maximum sustainable employment. It had limited data and less accurate forecasts due to COVID uncertainty. The Prime Minister's trying to convince his political foe not to bring back the oil and gas ban. Christopher Luxon has written to Labour leader Chris Hipkins, saying the country's in the unenviable position of importing vast quantities of coal to keep the lights on. Luxon's letter told Hipkins the possibility of a future Labour government choosing to reinstate a ban for offshore gas exploration may pose a barrier for some investors. The PM asked for Labour to commit to supporting offshore exploration for natural gas for at least the next decade. It appears other countries are still thirsty for our wine. The New Zealand Wine Growers 2025 annual report states exports are sitting at more than $2 billion per annum, fueling investment in 42,000 hectares of vineyards. The US remains the major export market despite a 3% drop at 762 million, and newer Asian markets are doing well.
Herald Now Sport. Brought to you by Gold Sport.
Former Silver Ferns netball coach Yvonne Willering has questioned the silence from the Players Association amid the continued absence of incumbent mentor Dame Nolene Taurua. Men's tennis world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz has beaten Casper Ruud in 3 sets to reach the Japan Open final, where he will meet second seed Taylor Fritz for a chance to claim his 8th title of the year. Grammy-winning rapper Bad Bunny has been offered a musical carrot. He's been confirmed as the headline act for next year's Super Bowl halftime show in Santa Clara, California.
You're watching Herald Now, just gone 4 minutes after 8. And breaking news, the US President Donald Trump has said Israel will withdraw from Gaza in phases under a deal that's negotiated with Netanyahu this morning. They are currently speaking to reporters at the White House. Just repeating that, the president says Israel will withdraw from Gaza in phases under the deal. Now, has the deal been signed? Not yet. Has it got any agreement from leaders inside Palestine, particularly the Hamas inside Gaza? No. They said this morning that they had not received any formal proposals. So this is Trump's word at the moment, but that is the very latest. We'll bring you more throughout the hour. Back home, police are investigating after a vehicle was driven into Orewa's Shorewood Gastro Bar overnight and a fire was lit behind the bar. Photos from the scene show a small blue car sitting in the middle of the pub with tables, chairs and glass strewn around it. Police are searching for the occupants of the car, who apparently fled on foot.
Herald Now Weather. Brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora. Well, for most of us, it's a fine, dry and sunny looking Tuesday. There are a few features to watch out for. This band of rain lingering in the far north, this next area of wet weather back in towards the south, and also find some stronger winds as well ahead of that band of rain in the south. Places like Southland, Otago, and even up in towards the Canterbury High Country as we head towards the end of the day today and through into the early hours of Wednesday morning. That wet weather, though, we're pushing northwards with a bit of a wintry feel to it, especially as we head through the night time tonight. Stronger winds ahead of it, but I think we're going to find it stays just about dry through most of Canterbury, just with the cloud perhaps thickening up and those winds increasing, especially through the Canterbury High Country. A fine day in Marlborough and Tasman, more cloud on that western coast with a few showers to watch out for. For most of the North Island, it's a dry story. There will be more cloud arriving in the afternoon for places like Manawatu, Wanganui and Taranaki, but generally staying dry. And fine weather around these eastern coasts. Highs back to around about 20 degrees Celsius for Hastings. And a fine day through the Bay of Plenty. Waikato looking pretty decent and up in towards the Coromandel too. Auckland stays dry, a touch more cloud in the afternoon. If you're heading up into the far north though, we'll find this lingering band of wet weather stays with us throughout the day.
You're watching Herald Now. It's just gone 7 minutes after 8. So we've had Chris Hipkins on the show this morning saying no thanks to the bipartisan letter from Christopher Luxon. This is on gas exploration. We've also had Synlait on the program. The chief executive told us they've just signed a new energy deal, multi-year, and it's double what they were paying. Major energy users are also this morning calling for stronger backup as Huntly Power Station remains key to supply. The major electricity users group says it's not a question of whether the market is broken or not, it's a question of whether it's delivering the outcomes that we need, and according to them, it ain't. Karen Boyes is Chief Executive. Karen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. First of all, who do you represent? What groups, major electricity users groups, who are we talking about?
So 13 of the largest organisations across the country. So we've got members like Fonterra, NZ Steel, OG, Penk. We've also got recent members DataGrid, who are looking to open a data centre down south, Amazon Web Services, who you'll be familiar with up in Auckland. We've also recently welcomed Ansco Foods, meat and lamb there. Also got Woolworths. So I said it's quite a mix. I said, what is a large energy user is changing? But certainly, I said the concerns across all our members are the same.
And the government report coming out tomorrow, I don't think, based on the language that I've heard, that they're going to split up the gentailers. Is that something you want? And if we don't get that, what else?
I said splitting the gentailers, I wouldn't say the government would pursue it. I said for us, we don't see it as a key action to pursue. I said our focus is how do we bring down the wholesale electricity price, so that's the spot price. Our biggest concerns coming out of last winter were obviously supply. I said we have a dry year risk that continues to hurt the country. And I said we've also seen fuel like gas disappear. So what we'd really like to see is some work to provide some firming generation. I see as of 8 o'clock this morning, the Commerce Commission's put its draft decision out for Huntly, saying that it approves or draft approves continuing the use of Huntly Rankine Unit 2. I said we certainly welcome that, but I said our view is that we need more than just simply the Huntly unit to keep the country, I guess, stable through our weather, whether it's a dry year, wet year. I said we need that comfort as businesses and houses that will have reliable supply, whatever the weather is outside.
I haven't had a chance to look at that, as you can imagine, being on air. But tell us, so what have they said? So you can keep the Rankine 2, because we've had the coal deal done for the next 10 years, so we know there's enough coal for Huntly. Do we need more than that?
I think we certainly do. From a resilience perspective as a country, I said it is, it is uncautious to put all your eggs in one basket. I said having it at one site does create resilience issues. And I think as a country, we know about the risks that we can face. I think we should be looking at other options for firming. And I said in the long term, that should be using our hydro. I said, so we desperately need to be building out more renewables. But at the moment, I said we really need to look at our thermal options. We do understand there is potentially an option up in Marsden at the Channel Infrastructure site, possibly for a diesel peaker up there, which would be helpful. I said, sadly, we are losing the Taranaki plant at the end of this year. So I said it would be great to have a third option in the country. And over time, I said a South Island option would be great.
So a diesel, what are you talking about in Northland?
So I know that they're looking at early engineering studies about what it might involve to have a diesel plant there. I said they are connected to the grid. It is north of Auckland, so it does provide a great location. So at these early stages, I said I understand they've just done the engineering work, but it's certainly an option that we'd like to see the government look at seriously.
Karen, what about, there's the big debate about gas. The major energy electricity users group, do you place any hope, are your hopes and dreams that gas will fill some of this void?
Realistically, in the short term, no. I said when we see the report tomorrow, I said the first thing I'll be looking at is how does that help my members, broader businesses and consumers, including myself, go into next winter? Does it actually have any downward pressure on our electricity bills? Gas, I said I've seen the discussion this morning between the Prime Minister and Chris Hipkins. I said bipartisan agreement on energy policy would be ideal. I said the uncertainty that we've faced in the last 5 to 6 years has been really detrimental. I said we have been calling for some bipartisan agreement, whether it's on energy policy as a whole or even gas. I said at the moment what we'd love to see is some agreement on what's going to happen with gas and what's going to happen with firming, because those are two key risks that are really impacting the price in the market at the moment.
Karen, sadly at this point they're not even agreeing on, they can't even agree on who's more bipartisan. That's the latest thing they've got to fight about. Appreciate your time this morning, Karen. Karen Boyes, Major Electricity Users Group Chief Executive. Time is 12 minutes. Interesting on the ComCom report as well. Right, it is 12 minutes after 8. Tonight, rugby boots will be ditched for stilettos at Eden Park Stadium as it transforms into a runway for fashion on the field. It's the first ever runway show held on the stadium's playing field, and Katie Oliver from the Herald is down there. Katie, good morning. What's going on?
Yeah, good morning, Ryan. Look, it's not just top sportsmen and rugby players that use Eden Park. Tonight, it'll be New Zealand's top fashion designers that'll be coming here. Now, I'm joined by breast cancer cure. I love this product.
Looks to me like we might have lost the audio on Katie there at Eden Park. We'll come back to her as soon as we have fixed that issue. Before news at 8:30, we'll also chat to Anne Gibson from the Herald, smartest woman in the newsroom, easily. Sarah Henry from R Media is with us as well. We'll be back with Katie and our panel in just a second.
Oh, I also wanted to get something for my new kitchen while I was here.
Yeah, we've got plenty of great appliances for your kitchen.
Ah, here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Sing your heart out to Coast's feel-good 80s hits. Kenny Loggins. Whitney. John Farnham. Eurythmics. Bonnie Tyler. Eric Carmen. The most 80s are on Coast. Sing your heart out. Coast.
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own, unlike other tea companies, then pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity and to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
do try it.
Welcome back. It is 16 minutes after 8. Let's go back to Katie Oliver at Eden Park now. Katie, we've got you. Tell us what's going on there tonight.
Yes, good morning again, Ryan. Look, I'm here with Breast Cancer Cure CEO Sonia Damari, and tonight it's not just going to be rugby players that use Eden Park. It's actually going to be New Zealand's top fashion designers. Now, Sonia, what are you guys doing here?
We are going to replace the rugby boots on the field for stilettos. We're bringing in 25 top New Zealand designers who have all donated amazing artwork for our Summer Teas campaign, which is fundraising for breast cancer research in New Zealand.
And what will the fundraising go towards? What are you hoping to achieve?
For this campaign, we're wanting to sell about 5,000 T-shirts, which will raise enough money for 4 brand new research projects. And New Zealand, we have such a unique population. We believe that investing in researchers in New Zealand and using our own data to get our own parameters for what we need as a population is really important.
Now, it's a massive issue. 1 in 9 New Zealand women deal with breast cancer. It's a pretty important conversation to start. How passionate are you about getting this conversation going?
Well, it's a privilege. Like, it is something that affects so many New Zealanders, and we just want to make a difference and make this just something that becomes survivable. That you, if you're diagnosed with breast cancer, you can then you live with it, and there's a different circumstance. At the moment, it still, unfortunately, ends up with 2 women in New Zealand dying every day.
And what's actually going to happen here? Talk me through what's going to happen tonight.
So we have, at 6 o'clock, we've got 200 people coming in, and we are going to showcase our designers, and they're going to be able to talk through what they've done and their creativity and their connection to breast cancer. And then we're going to take everybody out to the field, and we're doing a runway show where each of the T-shirts will be curated into their spring-summer collections.
Now, this is with the designers like Trelise Cooper, Karen Walker. You're wearing one of the designs right now, aren't you?
I am. I'm in Company of Strangers. It's by Sarah Monroe.
Epic. And now how much are these shirts going for as well?
$59, and you can order as a pre-order campaign. That means that we just order specifically to everybody who buys a T-shirt. We don't hold any stock. It's a really sustainable campaign.
Epic. Now, these are brands like Zambezi who are typically really upmarket, but they've made these shirts affordable. So how much are you hoping to raise?
We are hoping for about 300,000, but if we can get upwards of that, it would be incredible.
Amazing. Hey, look, so tonight everything is going to be going down at Eden Park, and we will have a bit more of a sneak peek later on the show there, Ryan.
Great. Katie, when we come back, I want to see your catwalk too. We'll do that later on. Katie Oliver,
I'll give it a go.
Herald NOW reporter, along with Sonia Damari, Breast Cancer Cure Chief Executive. Really good cause, 18 minutes after 8. The final winner of One Roof's car competition has been drawn, and a drum roll, please. Congratulations to Saras from Auckland, who is now the proud owner of a brand new 2025 Suzuki Fronx. Saras entered every week for a chance to win and was pulled out from more than 67,000 entries across the 3 weeks. Congratulations. Now to our panel for the big stories. Anne Gibson, Herald property editor, along with Sarah Henry, our media founder at the desk. Good morning. Good to see you both.
Kia ora, Ryan.
Kia ora. So we'll start with earthquakes, and I want to get your take on this because property is your thing. Thoughts?
Well, I know that the Property Council, Master Builders and the Institute of Architects came out yesterday and we're very happy about it. So let's hope there's no big one in Auckland. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we were just talking before about where your company is headquartered in a former manufacturing building, food processing building, and we were saying, you know, I was asking, is it seismically strengthened? Look, it does make sense, but I still have a very strong memory of the Canterbury Earthquakes Royal Commission. Now, one thing I take away from that is most people do not die from buildings falling on them in New Zealand. Most people actually die, sadly, of cancer. Car accidents come after that, along with diabetes and strokes and a few other things. So we have to sort of keep this in perspective. You're very unlikely to be killed by a building, but that's the point about natural disasters, right? They're unexpected, they're not anticipated. Now, it does make sense what the Building and Construction Minister, Chris Penk, has said about removing most buildings from the list, because that does put an incredible financial burden on a lot of people. And he pointed out that it leaves buildings empty, which means that ultimately they can become more dangerous because they're derelict, right? They're not being maintained. Buildings are made for people to be inside. So I can see the logic, but I also recall the shock of people dying in buildings in Canterbury and the outcome of that. So, like any good journalist, see it from both sides, right?
Yeah, totally. Sarah, I'm from Wellington, so living in Auckland.
From Wellington.
Oh, right there. So you know what is what.
I've got under the desk at primary school.
Exactly. Yeah. And people, my mum told me that back in the 90s, that you would have women who would come to the office normally in their stilettos would bring a pair of running shoes because that main trunk line out of Wellington was on the fault line. So there was this worry that actually people wouldn't be able to get home.
And they were going to have to jog.
They were going to have to run home. So that was a thing for a while. But do you think people, I mean, in Auckland, no one really ever thinks about it?
No. I mean, I think that there's been one tiny little sort of shake and people were completely freaked out. And I was like, that wasn't even a thing. Look, this sounds like common sense has actually ruled for once in some rule making, I guess. Look, nobody wants anybody to die in those sort of circumstances, but you literally can't mitigate for every single risk that might possibly be out there. And the fact that if you've been down to Courtenay Place recently and like seen the impact of those rules and what that's done to the city, I think that's almost more of a risk to people than the earthquake. And there was some ridiculous figure that these and the rules in the current state was going to save something like 7 lives. And cost a gazillion dollars. You know, not saying those 7 lives are not important, but in the scheme of things, 7 lives is a very small amount for the impact that that's got on such a wide-reaching situation.
Yeah, interesting. What about this idea, and we do it, governments do it, not just here, but everywhere. Something bad happens, and then they over-engineer a response.
Well, you know, I think what happened with that Royal Commission was there was concentration on buildings which failed to such a level. There was such tremendous life lost, the CCTV building, for example. and the former Pine Gould building. Those two examples in Christchurch stand out in my memory, the utter terror of that. Now, look, I can certainly see what's being achieved here, and that's a good point you're making about overreaction. But did it seem like overreaction in 2011?
No.
To me, it didn't seem that way. To me, the Royal Commission seemed to come out with really good findings, really sensible, talking about the idea of our seismicity in this country and the risks that posed, and our congregation in buildings that could be a risk to us. Now, that didn't seem an overreaction back then.
Yeah, it's all very well in hindsight, isn't it? Now, let's talk about the bipartisan thing. I find it just hilarious that they're already arguing, so that they've sent a letter, there's a letter being sent between PM and Leader of the Opposition. Already they're arguing over who's more bipartisan.
Yeah.
The irony.
I know. Are we ever going to see consensus on some of these things? Look, I'd love to say yes, that would be great. But reality is, I just don't think we're ever going to kind of get there. What I'd love is them to go out to the New Zealand public and say, are there certain areas that you guys want us to be aligned on? And whether we could make that a public choice so that it wasn't up to the parties whether they agreed on it. It was actually up to the New Zealand people that says, we want consensus on this area, and this area. And then we'll make up our individual votes, how you're performing operationally in those kind of areas. From my perspective, I would be into that. I just don't think they'll get there by themselves.
It's too adversarial. I mean, the system's not set up. It's almost, leader of the opposition. Yeah. It is by design that they're meant to attack and oppose everything. Yeah.
Interesting to look at the studies that are being done at the moment for the second harbour crossing and the boats in the harbour that are studying the ground condition. So it does seem to me to be fairly crucial to get a second harbour crossing in Auckland, given the fact that the Auckland Harbour Bridge opened the same year that I was born, in 1959, right?
Has it been earthquake strengthened?
Don't ask.
Evidently it can last for quite a few decades to continue, but I would really like to see progress on a second harbour crossing in Auckland, and particularly with rail. I mean, what a gift that would be. We're about to open the City Rail Link next year. We really are, evidently, after all this time. And, that will be transformative in Auckland. I think people have no idea about the difference that will make in people's lives.
Yeah, our fingers are certainly crossed for that. Anne and Sarah on the panel, back in a second.
You Do It DIY can make your new dream kitchen a reality. As a trusted Kiwi manufacturer for 44 years, You Do It has made it easy to design, order and assemble your own dream kitchen, offering a range of colour options and flexible sizing. With excellent online support, our customers all agree that You Do It makes DIY easy, delivering superb quality at a great price. Get your project started today at nzherald.co.nz.
We have completed 4 builds with GJ. Every time we want to think of building, we always go back to GJ.
It's a really good experience throughout the whole process.
They deliver what they promise on, and it feels like working with a family member. It's very easy and trustworthy to work with GJ.
I'm Hayden Scott, and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. Yeah, my previous life, I was a chef. Did that for 25 years. But I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time. And so that transition from finishing that 25-year career and taking the plunge into full-time knife maker, I had been building up to that, but I still had to take a leap.
Know more of the story with Herald Premium, giving you full access to in-depth news, opinion and analysis, with more world news, business insights, and investigative reports from our world-class team of journalists. plus subscriber-only functionality to comment on stories, access newspaper e-editions, gift articles, and enjoy crosswords and puzzles. Subscribe now to Herald Premium.
Ann Gibson, Sarah Henry on the panel this morning, 28 minutes after 8. We'll get an update from the White House shortly. Now, story about the longest flight in the world. It's 29 hours, goes from China connects China with South America. But it goes via Auckland for a couple of hours, just for a little...
Just pop in.
A wee break, potentially. Thoughts, Anne, would you get on that plane?
Last year, my family and I did a trip to Europe. Got some advice from a friend who used to be a travel agent. He said, stop in Singapore halfway, sleep for 18 hours. In Terminal 3 at Changi Airport, there is a beautiful hotel called the Crown Plaza. I would highly recommend that. We stopped for 18 hours. 3 of us went to sleep in the beautiful beds. We had a swim in the outdoor pool. Couldn't have been better. We arrived in London at Heathrow, tired, but not as exhausted at our ages as we would have been if we had not stopped. I think that the older you get, the more important it is to actually stop and sleep. And everyone goes like, oh, we're only away for 3 weeks, we've got to maximise our time. No, be good to yourself. Look after your body. Go and lie down, be horizontal for long periods of time, doing nothing with your eyes shut.
But you can do that on a plane.
I love that you just
No,
explained
not at
sleeping.
33,000, the pressure on your body. Huh?
I said, I love that you just explained sleeping to us. Life
Even
plan.
if you're not sleeping in that hotel, just be just be horizontal.
A lot of things you can do horizontally, of course. Sarah, do you sleep on planes?
I have slept on a plane. Look, any full-time working mother loves long haul. Loves long haul flying. Give me as many hours in that seat as I can get. Someone's going to bring me food. I'm going to be able to watch what I want to watch. I might be a little bit uncomfortable because I'm not shelling out for a bigger seat, but I will sit there for hours and hours and hours. The peace of long haul flying. It's a dream.
But then we put up with the chatter from the kids, you know what I mean?
No, you're not taking the kid with you. You've left the kid at home. Yeah,
I see, right.
You're not paying, or you're putting them in a seat like way down over there.
The other thing we're talking about this morning, very quickly, is toilet breaks. And this story of supermarket apparently limiting pee breaks to break time only, and you're only allowed to have water, not allowed to have water bottles at the checkout during working hours. Thoughts?
I'm not sure about that. Didn't the company say that it is up to individual store owners and there's no national policy?
Yes.
That's my thoughts.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, look, it's up. I get that they want to keep everything professional and they don't want somebody chugging down the thing, but you are removing a kind of fundamental right for somebody to have access to those things.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty baseline. Personally, I don't have an issue if somebody picks up in between customers a water bottle, takes a sip and puts it back down under the counter. I probably wouldn't even notice.
No. I'm with you. It's like a basic human right. You can't stop people drinking water. And as you say, Anne, a company has come out and said that it's up to each individual store to decide their own policies, but that they hope that they are fair and reasonable. That's Anne Gibson, our New Zealand Herald property editor, along with Sarah Henry from Our Media. Thanks, guys. Good to see you both. It's just gone 29 minutes away from 9 o'clock now. US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have been meeting at the White House. In a post-meeting address with media, Trump thanked Netanyahu for agreeing to his Gaza peace plan before listing the countries around the world who also are on board with it. Now, speaking to reporters, Netanyahu says he supports the president's vision.
I support your plan to end the war in Gaza, which achieves our war aims. It will bring back to Israel all our hostages, dismantle Hamas's military capabilities, end its political rule, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
The Prime Minister says he will now take the plan to his cabinet to pass. This would dismantle Hamas's military capabilities and demilitarise Gaza. Netanyahu says under the plan, Gaza will have a peaceful civilian administration that is run neither by Hamas nor by the Palestinian Authority. He says if the international body succeeds, it would be a sign they would have permanently ended the war. Now, it's important to note that at this point, this is just an agreement between the US and its ally Israel. Here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
The Property Council says a reset to quake-prone building standards will prevent buildings from being left empty. The government's new system only captures buildings genuinely posing a risk to life in medium and high seismic risk zones. It'll see Auckland, Northland and the Chatham Islands removed from the regime. Coastal Otago, including Dunedin, will be classified as a medium seismic hazard area and will remain within the earthquake-prone building system. It'll mean nearly 3,000 buildings will no longer be considered earthquake-prone. Chief Executive Leonie Freeman says the current rule saw many owners choosing abandoning their buildings instead of strengthening.
The analogy I can think of is like for car engines. And a rule came in which said every 10 years you've got to replace your car engine, regardless of whether you need to, whether it's run down or whatever. That's what we've had.
Concern over what's being forgotten in our health system to meet government targets. It set targets around cancer treatment access, childhood immunisation rates, ED stays and wait times. The latest stats show child immunisations are up 5% to 82%, while shorter ED stays have improved by just over 2%. Former Health NZ Chair Rob Campbell told Ryan Bridge there will be some things lapsing in order to achieve these.
The task for our public health system is really not so much to hit specific targets, but can we rebuild our health system into something which across the board is effective, efficient and resilient?
The Reserve Bank's conceded earlier or more aggressive OCR hikes may have reduced inflation sooner. It's been reviewing its response to the recent 3-year period of high inflation. Chief Economist Paul Conway says the central bank was also required to maintain maximum sustainable employment. It had limited data and less accurate forecasts due to COVID uncertainty. The Prime Minister's trying to convince his political foe not to bring back the oil and gas ban. Christopher Luxon has written to Labour leader Chris Hipkins, saying the country's in the unenviable position of importing vast quantities of coal to keep the lights on. Luxon's letter told Hipkins the possibility of a future Labour government choosing to reinstate a ban for offshore gas exploration may pose a barrier for some investors. The PM asked for Labour to commit to supporting offshore exploration for natural gas for at least the next decade. It appears other countries are still thirsty for our wine. The New Zealand Wine Growers 2025 annual report states exports are sitting at more than $2 billion per annum, fueling investment in 42,000 hectares of vineyards. The US remains the major export market despite a 3% drop at 762 million, and newer Asian markets are doing well.
Herald Now Sport. Brought to you by Gold Sport.
Former Silver Ferns netball coach Yvonne Willering has questioned the silence from the Players Association amid the continued absence of incumbent mentor Dame Nolene Taurua. Men's tennis world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz has beaten Casper Ruud in 3 sets to reach the Japan Open final, where he will meet second seed Taylor Fritz for a chance to claim his 8th title of the year. Grammy-winning rapper Bad Bunny has been offered a musical carrot. He's been confirmed as the headline act for next year's Super Bowl halftime show in Santa Clara, California.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora. Well, for most of us, it's a fine, dry and sunny looking Tuesday. There are a few features to watch out for. This band of rain lingering in the far north. This next area of wet weather back in towards the south, and also find some stronger winds as well ahead of that band of rain in the south. Places like Southland, Otago, and even up in towards the Canterbury High Country as we head towards the end of the day today and through into the early hours of Wednesday morning. That wet weather, though, we're pushing northwards with a bit of a wintry feel to it, especially as we head through the night time tonight. Stronger winds ahead of it, but I think we're going to find it stays just about dry through most of Canterbury, just with the cloud perhaps thickening up and those winds increasing, especially through the Canterbury High Country. A fine day in Marlborough and Tasman, more cloud on that western coast with a few showers to watch out for. For most of the Northland, it's a dry story. There'll be more cloud arriving in the afternoon for places like Manawatu, Wanganui and Taranaki, but generally staying dry. And fine weather around these eastern coasts. Highs back to around about 20 degrees Celsius for Hastings, and a fine day through the Bay of Plenty. Waikato looking pretty decent, and up in towards the Coromandel too. Auckland stays dry, a touch more cloud in the afternoon. If you're heading up into the far north though, we'll find this lingering band of wet weather stays with us throughout the day.
22 minutes away from 9 o'clock now. We were talking to the panel about this issue of the drink bottles at the checkouts and the supermarkets, and I sort of might have said that they were also stopping them going to the toilet, and I didn't mean to say that. That's what they do here to me. So give me all the water in the world, but then don't let me go and relieve myself. So I'm going to end up either exploding come 9 o'clock during the news, or I'll have bladder cancer or something horrible like that. Anyway, apologies for that confusion. 22 away from 9 now. We're talking business, thanks to our partners 2 Degrees. And Business Desk Garth Bray has been looking at this ComCom draft decision on using Huntly Power Station. It was released at 8 o'clock this morning. Garth, what do we know?
Well, look, it's not that much of a surprise, I think, that they've ticked this off, because the Commerce Commission was sort of telling us at the time, hey, look, make sure you understand that the gentailers have brought this to us. We haven't asked them to bring it to us. So I think this was really kind of a pro forma look. I mean, obviously they've studied this pretty carefully because it's a contentious issue. We're expecting the government to make some decisions about the nature of the energy market in the next 24 hours, aren't we? So, but this is basically a deal that says Huntly Power Station, which runs primarily on burning stuff, mostly, and has part of that, one of its turbines that was basically going to be decommissioned in about February next year, unless someone came up with the money to change that plan. Basically, Genesis said, we don't need to keep this running. We're only keeping it there for the benefit of the country and the market in general. So how about you guys chip in and take it off our balance sheet? They came up with a thing called a Huntly firming option, which is basically a deal to pay for some of the cost of maintaining it, but also to buy in some of that Indonesian coal. And they've since done a deal to try and mine some locally. And I guess the Commerce Commission was looking at that because there was the 4 big gentailers that had struck that deal, and this, to the rest of the market, smells a bit like the 4 big players basically cutting a deal that will be preferential for them. The deal in there suggests that the draft determination that's come out says there's about, I'm just going to check the number, 135 megawatts of capacity that remains available outside this deal. It's quite a substantial amount. I mean, like Tekapo, Genesis schemes only slightly higher than that, is available, and they will create what are called shaped hedges, which we've talked about before, nothing to do with topiary and mazes, everything to do with basically creating a power product that you can buy as a retailer to sort of get you through tricky parts of the year when either demand is high or supply is lower. And they're saying that will create the ability to offer this on reasonable terms. But the problem is, how reasonable are those terms going to be? The submissions from everyone from, other power companies, 2 Degrees, a bunch of different people saying, hey, listen, you've got to be really careful about this because we think there's too much incentive in there for the big players to just keep things the way they are, to continue to offer, they say, their retail arms
Sweetheart deals.
Sweetheart deals.
And then the problem for us as consumers is if you have that concentration and you don't have the competition, then we all end up paying high prices.
So this looks like this is draft approval. So they're still saying, hey, we'd like some more information if anyone's got a problem with that. It looks like it's going to go through, but it's a question of whether there'll be any kind of tweaks to make the excess capacity a bit more transparent and make it a bit clearer so that it's a fairer deal. Yeah.
Is it? It's almost they've almost got no choice, do they? I mean, you know what I mean? Like they could stand in the way and say, oh no, well we can't have that, and then what? We're all buggered.
Well, basically you've kicked the generator into touch, haven't you? The backup generator, so that if we have a cold year or a dry year again or whatever, you're going to start to see power shortages and cuts, and nobody wants cold showers by candlelight, as Malcolm Johns from Genesis Energy told me.
Ain't nobody got time for that, Garth. Thank you very much. Garth Bray, Business Desk. Thanks to our partners 2 Degrees. 18 minutes away from 9. Coming up, long haul flying, love it or hate it. There's another option coming soon, and boy, is it a marathon.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning. Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit. You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On the hits.
Oh, I also wanted to get something for my new kitchen while I was here.
Yeah, we've got plenty of great appliances for your kitchen.
And R&B. Flavor.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then. Mm-hmm.
16 to 9, the world's longest flight is launching just in time for Christmas. It is a grueling 29-hour journey. Here to talk all things travel, I'm joined by Lorna Riley, Trip Notes podcast host. Lorna, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, strap yourself in. This is quite the marathon. So we've already got fairly long flights. I think the longest one in the world at the moment is Singapore to New York. That's about 18 hours. But if you fly out of Auckland to Europe, you've probably caught one of these flights before, you're about 17 hours if you go through Doha or Dubai. We thought that was long, but China Eastern, December 4th, they are launching Buenos Aires to Shanghai. So it is 29 hours, the flight. Does include a 2-hour stopover right here in Auckland, actually. But chances are you won't be able to get off the plane. So you're 29 hours in total on the plane, and we've both flown China Eastern before. To me, that sounds like you need a gold medal at the end.
Yeah.
But if it is something that interests people, that's fares start around 2,400 economy. It's a bit quicker if you go the other way, Shanghai to Buenos Aires, because of the spinning of the planet.
Spinning.
So it's about 25 hours, but still a long flight in anyone's book.
Massive, and the fact that you can't get off the plane. Like, if there's one thing worse than being stuck on a plane in the air, it's being stuck on a plane on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? Hey, Qantas is going not quite that far, but they've got a new one coming, a new long one.
Yes, now this was supposed to start this year, but because of the pandemic, of course, it's been pushed back. So it's going to begin in 2027. This is Sydney to London, and it's going to be 20 hours, and that will be the longest true non-stop flight in the world. So what's another 3 hours? If you can do 17.
Well, exactly. I mean, so I guess the option for us would be to just hop over to Sydney and then jump on that, which would speed things up, obviously, but then you just got to weigh up whether you want to be on a plane for that long, I suppose.
Absolutely. If you're one of those people that can sleep on a plane, it's probably a fine option, but if not, not so much.
Travel insurance, is it a waste of money? Are we throwing our money away when we get it?
Well, I think it's a must if you travel outside of New Zealand. We're told we should have it within New Zealand, but I kind of trust the locals a little bit more. So I don't travel without it internationally. But Consumer New Zealand has come out with 3 reasons why your travel claim may be denied. And the first is leaving your things unattended. Now, in New Zealand, we go to the beach, we leave our bag on the beach, we go for a swim. We don't think anything of it. If you do that overseas and your stuff is taken, chances are your claim will not be accepted because you've left your stuff unattended. Lack of ownership proof, that's another reason why travel insurance gets turned down. So keep receipts, even photos of you wearing an item or holding an item, that can be useful as well. I know some people photograph the contents of their suitcase before they go away, just so they kind of know what they've got. And if you have jewellery. I don't know why you travel with expensive jewellery, but if you do, have a valuation as well. And the third reason is pre-existing medical conditions, because if a claim arises and it's got anything to do with something you already have, it won't be accepted. So another piece of advice that I would add is file a police report. We had a family member lose their phone in Raro, and they filed a police report there. That was the thing that got their claim accepted. So that's pretty important too. And if you're unhappy, there is the Insurance and Financial Service Ombudsman Scheme. It's free and you can turn to it if you think your claim has been unfairly turned down.
Okay, so they are looking at whether you've left your stuff unattended, so you just tell them you didn't.
Well, pretty much. I think you're supposed to be honest, but yes, I'm not saying you should lie, Ryan, but...
Not official advice, not official advice. What about your destination of the week this week, Lorna?
Oh yeah, it's South Korea. So neither you nor I have seen K-pop Demon Hunters, but 325 million people have seen it. It's the biggest thing ever on Netflix, and it has caused South Korea to open up a new theme park, or part of their theme park they already have, Everland. So there's interactive games, there's K-pop dance challenges, themed food trucks, loads of exclusive merch. This is absolutely huge. They've also announced that the KETA visa waiver system is going to be extended for at least till at least the end of next year. So that means Kiwis can really easily get over there, skip the paperwork and get straight to the fun. And next year too, South Korea is introducing a tourist pass. So that's going to bundle transport and entry to a whole lot of cultural attractions and make it really, really attractive for visitors. So they're going hard. They want to get 30 million international visitors by 2030.
Wow, this is smart from them, isn't it?
Yeah, really smart.
We know how Lord of the Rings worked for us.
Yes.
So if you've got, 400 million, 375 million people watching that, and the kids will take me to South Korea.
Yeah, not just the kids. I know, grown adults who are
really?
right into their K-pop.
Okay, all right. Good to see you, Lorna. Thank you.
Cheers.
Lorna Riley, Trip Notes podcast host with us. It is 11 minutes away from 9. Coming up, we're taking you back to the fashion parade at Eden Park, all in the name of breast cancer.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because of the good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Yeah, do what I want. Yeah, can't get enough. Yeah, do what I want. Yeah, can't get enough. Yeah, do what I want. Still can't get enough.
You Do It delivers high-quality New Zealand-made flat-pack DIY kitchen cabinetry. With flexible widths at your fingertips, it makes designing easy. All at an affordable price because you order online and cut out the middleman. You can even upgrade your dream kitchen with You Do It stylish and clever options, like choosing wall cabinets with overhanging doors, or select from a range of pull-out storage solutions. Add premium soft-close drawers and ask to stretch the height, width or depth of your cabinets. Upgrade your kitchen today and head to nzherald.co.nz.
Ready?
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
Speaking to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all? You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university. My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
Welcome back, 8 to 9. We're heading back to Eden Park now, which is playing host to not footy, but fashion tonight. Reporter Katie Oliver is with us. Katie, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan. Yes, so tonight, right where the All Blacks beat the Wallabies just last weekend, there's going to be New Zealand's top 25 fashion designers. 25 tees from brands like Zambezi and Karen Walker will be selling their t-shirts and their designs, all for breast cancer cure. Now, with 1 in 9 women diagnosed with breast cancer, it's a pretty cool cause there, Ryan, and they're aiming to sell 5,000 tees, fundraising $300,000 for 4 projects that'll all go towards detecting and preventing breast cancer. It's a pretty cool cause there, Ryan.
Very good cause, Katie. And in honour of that cause, are you going to give us your catwalk walk this morning?
Go on.
And who are you wearing, Katie, before we
Better
start?
go back to the start.
Who are you wearing? Which
Yes. So I am wearing Tuesday, Ryan. This is one of the shirts that's up for grabs. And yeah, there's going to be plenty more. It's $59. So should I do it?
Give us your strut. Tuesday on a Tuesday with Katie Oliver at Eden Park. Off you go. Amazing, Katie. Well done. A little fast.
Thanks, Ryan.
You know, speaking just from personal experience, a little fast, but you did well. Good job. Hey, where can people buy the t-shirts?
I'm not a professional model.
Where can people buy the t-shirts, Katie, or where do they go for more information?
So you can get the t-shirts on breastcancercure.co.nz and they're all up on sale already, so get on there and grab your t-shirt.
All right, nice work, Katie. Good to see Katie Oliver from the Herald at Eden Park. Bit of modelling experience, put that on the CV. 7 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Time to find out what's on the front page podcast now. I'm joined by host Chelsea Daniels, who's at the desk. Chelsea, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Lucky you're not standing up, or you'll be doing one too.
Oh no, count me out. That was way better than anything I could have come up with.
Climate targets. Who are you speaking to?
Yeah, so I spoke to Victoria University climate scientist, Professor James Renwick, and this is all because the first ever Overshoot conference is happening in Austria this week. It's basically where the world's best and brightest climate scientists are going to Austria to chat about what happens if we don't, if we overshoot, if we get past that 1.5% of global warming, degrees of global warming. So he's been at the forefront of this for decades, and I asked him how conversations have changed over the years, and we've got a clip for you now.
It's become sort of more and more desperate, I guess, and from the science community there's a lot more desperation, worry, anxiety, anger even about the lack of action, because the problem has become clearer and obviously more dangerous. And that's not something I anticipated back in the 1990s. I genuinely thought countries would see what needed to be done and do it. But, that's a very naive thought. Human nature is the big problem here, I think. And how much it will take to break through that kind of thinking, I don't know. It worries me how much it'll take. It will cost a lot of money and I suspect a lot of lives before we see real action.
All right, what else do you say?
Well, pretty dire, actually. He said basically, what we're looking at here is that do we need to just sit here and wait for mass death and destruction and everything for us to actually do something? Because we've known about this for decades. He brought up Al Gore, what he said to Congress back in the 80s. And we also spoke about China's recent pledge. So you would have seen recently they pledged for the first time to reduce total greenhouse gas emissions to 7 to 10%. That still falls short of the 30% that the climate scientists reckon they need to do. But if China's starting to get serious about climate change and global warming, I mean, the rest of us probably should be as well.
Yeah, although not serious enough.
Serious enough.
They were 7 to 12% or whatever it is reduction when people say they need 30. I don't know. What are we going to do?
Keep doing what we're doing. It's the elephant in the room, Winston Peters said at the UN the other week.
Yeah. All right. We're looking forward to today's one, Chelsea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Chelsea Daniels, host of the Front Page podcast. You can get that wherever you get your podcasts and like to listen. Also available on YouTube in video form as well. A couple of quick updates for you this morning that you might be interested in. So Electronic Arts, which is EA Sports in the Game. If you've ever played a video game, you might have heard that before. They have FIFA as one of their video games. They also have a 10% stake, a minority stake in Nintendo, and they also own the parent company of Pokemon Go. This is a Saudi outfit that's buying them, a largest private equity-backed buyout in history of Electronic Arts at $55 billion. It is a massive deal. So the Saudis very much wanting to get into the video game space and already have been. Silver Lake is on board as well, taking it private. Now, the stockholders will get $210 a share in cash. That is a 25% premium on what they were getting close of Thursday, so that is good news. Now, if you didn't buy shares and get that premium, don't worry, because gold continues to surge, and I've got some numbers for you on gold this morning. Gold rush continues, basically. Gold prices hitting a new record high overnight. Futures up 1% to $3,855 an ounce. That is a new all-time high. Investors obviously worried about the weaker dollar in the United States. Also, potentially this government shutdown, which is meant to be happening tomorrow over there. Gold prices in general have risen 45% this year alone. Let's check in with the rest of the morning's headlines. Here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
The Property Council says a reset to quake-prone building standards will prevent buildings from being left empty. The government's new system only captures buildings genuinely posing a risk to life in medium and high seismic risk zones. It'll see Auckland, Northland and the Chatham Islands removed from the regime. Coastal Otago, including Dunedin, will be classified as a medium seismic hazard area and will remain within the earthquake-prone building system. It'll mean nearly 3,000 buildings will no longer be considered earthquake-prone. Chief Executive Leonie Freeman says the current rule saw many owners choosing abandoning their buildings instead of strengthening.
The analogy I can think of is like for car engines. And a rule came in which said every 10 years you've got to replace your car engine, regardless of whether you need to, whether it's run down or whatever. That's what we've had.
Concern over what's being forgotten in our health system to meet government targets. It set targets around cancer treatment access, childhood immunisation rates, ED stays and wait times. The latest stats show child immunisations are up 5% to 82%, while shorter ED stays have improved by just over 2%. Former Health NZ Chair Rob Campbell told Ryan Bridge there will be some things lapsing in order to achieve these.
The task for our public health system is really not so much to hit specific targets, but can we rebuild our health system into something which across the board is effective, efficient and resilient?
The Reserve Bank's conceded earlier or more aggressive OCR hikes may have reduced inflation sooner. It's been reviewing its response to the recent 3-year period of high inflation. Chief Economist Paul Conway says the central bank was also required to maintain maximum sustainable employment. It had limited data and less accurate forecasts due to COVID uncertainty. The Prime Minister's trying to convince his political foe not to bring back the oil and gas ban. Christopher Luxon has written to Labour leader Chris Hipkins, saying the country's in the unenviable position of importing vast quantities of coal to keep the lights on. Luxon's letter told Hipkins the possibility of a future Labour government choosing to reinstate a ban for offshore gas exploration may pose a barrier for some investors. The PM asked for Labour to commit to supporting offshore exploration for natural gas for at least the next decade. It appears other countries are still thirsty for our wine. The New Zealand Wine Growers 2025 annual report states exports are sitting at more than $2 billion per annum, fueling investment in 42,000 hectares of vineyards. The US remains the major export market despite a 3% drop at 762 million, and newer Asian markets are doing well.
Herald Now Sport. Brought to you by Gold Sport.
Former Silver Ferns netball coach Yvonne Willering has questioned the silence from the Players Association amid the continued absence of incumbent mentor Dame Nolene Taurua. Men's tennis world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz has beaten Casper Ruud in 3 sets to reach the Japan Open final, where he will meet second seed Taylor Fritz for a chance to claim his 8th title of the year. Grammy-winning rapper Bad Bunny has been offered a musical carrot. He's been confirmed as the headline act for next year's Super Bowl halftime show in Santa Clara, California.
Herald Herald Now weather. Brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora. Well, for most of us, it's a fine, dry and sunny looking Tuesday. There are a few features to watch out for. This band of rain lingering in the far north, this next area of wet weather back in towards the south, and also find some stronger winds as well ahead of that band of rain in the south, places like Southland, Otago, and even up in towards the Canterbury High Country as we head towards the end of the day today and through into the early hours of Wednesday morning. That wet weather, though, we're pushing northwards with a bit of a wintry feel to it, especially as we head through the night time tonight. Stronger winds ahead of it, but I think we're going to find it stays just about dry through most of Canterbury, just with the cloud perhaps thickening up and those winds increasing, especially through the Canterbury High Country. A fine day in Marlborough and Tasman, more cloud on that western coast with a few showers to watch out for. For most of the Northland, it's a dry story. There'll be more cloud arriving in the afternoon for places like Manawatu, Wanganui and Taranaki, but generally staying dry. And fine weather around these eastern coasts. Highs back to around about 20 degrees Celsius for Hastings, and a fine day through the Bay of Plenty. Waikato looking pretty decent, and up in towards the Coromandel too. Auckland stays dry, a touch more cloud in the afternoon. If you're heading up into the far north, though, we'll find this lingering band of wet weather stays with us throughout the day.
And that is it for us for today. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again from 7 o'clock. That'd be a bit early. More news in the meantime. Head to nzherald.co.nz. Until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Have a great day.